While global headlines fixate on diplomatic screaming matches and fighter jet dogfights over the Aegean Sea, the real war is being fought with 100,000-ton slabs of reinforced concrete. Look at the map. The Pentagon is silently shifting its structural weight away from Turkey's landlocked airfields and pinning its entire Mediterranean strategy onto Pier K-14 in Suda Bay, a massive deep-water anchor capable of hot-swapping nuclear supercarriers without touching local grids. You think military power is about the flag on a uniform? It's about the depth of the water beneath the hull. Let me know in the comments, would you bet your empire on a volatile landlocked airbase or an unsinkable concrete pier? Welcome to Energy Axis Intel. Look, everyone is talking about the regional politics and sovereign alliances, but they're completely missing the concrete and the plumbing. Wait a minute. Let's look at the physical reality of how power actually operates in the Mediterranean. While geopolitical pundits argue over treaties, the real tactical calculus is decided by water depth, heavy mechanical clearance, and unyielding logistics lines. Let's look at the blueprints. We are shifting our focus away from diplomatic tables and diving directly into the raw engineering architecture of Incirlik and Suda Bay. For over half a century, Western strategic doctrine sold the world a flawless geopolitical narrative. Incirlik Air Base was marketed as an untouchable, landlocked nuclear fortress on NATO's southern flank. The geopolitical elite stared at maps and promised that this single patch of Turkish asphalt was an irreplaceable shield, holding the line against regional chaos and securing the ultimate strategic high ground. The promise was built on absolute geographic permanence. Billion-dollar defense budgets poured into the Anatolian soil, building heavily fortified command structures, deep subterranean vaults designed to store tactical B-61 nuclear gravity bombs, and massive hardened aircraft shelters. The mainstream press and military pundits looked at the sheer volume of military hardware and declared Incirlik completely immune to regional volatility. We were told that sovereign borders didn't matter when backed by mutual defense treaties and trillions of dollars in shared military architecture. The narrative promised a permanent, unjammable launch pad, capable of projecting crushing air power across the Middle East at a moment's notice. It looked flawless on a map. But wait a minute. The geopolitical architects forgot a fundamental rule of structural engineering. When you lock your critical military assets deep inside another nation's sovereign landmass, you don't own a strategic fortress. Let's look at the physical reality. You have actually financed a stationary landlocked asset whose entire operational lifespan can be held hostage by a single political kill switch. The promise of permanence was nothing more than a mechanical illusion. While Incirlik sits trapped behind locked sovereign fences, the Pentagon is betting its entire Mediterranean footprint on the raw mechanical anatomy of Suda Bay. Look at the blueprint of Pier K-14. This is 1,000 feet of solid, reinforced maritime concrete, plunging straight into a deep-water natural harbor. It completely bypasses shallow, littoral bottlenecks. This structural depth allows a massive 100,000-ton nuclear-powered supercarrier to berth directly against the concrete face instead of anchoring miles offshore. Let's do the math. Direct berthing enables the ship to draw massive shore power, cycle heavy live munitions, and exchange hundreds of tons of cargo simultaneously. This isn't just a naval dock. It is an unsinkable, high-throughput logistics platform sitting dead center on the critical Suez to Europe maritime highway, operating completely outside the reach of regional political leverage. Wait a minute. Look at the physical reality of the air-sea gap control. By anchoring heavy infrastructure directly into the Cretan bedrock, the military buys continuous unjammable power generation and operational endurance without requesting sovereign host nation flyover permissions. Every square inch of this reinforced concrete footprint is optimized to maintain an aggressive battlefield tempo. Trillions of dollars in global maritime cargo pass within striking distance of this single concrete pivot point daily. The Pentagon didn't just find an ally. They engineered a permanent, deep-water geographical valve to completely break Turkey's landlocked infrastructure monopoly. Let's look at the financial architecture, because this is where the geopolitical illusion completely dissolves into bad math. Building Incirlik wasn't just a military deployment. It was a massive, multi-billion-dollar capital expenditure program funded by American taxpayers to anchor permanent physical infrastructure into foreign soil. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of tons of specialized high-grade asphalt, heavy subterranean reinforced concrete vaults, and automated defense perimeters designed to last a century. On paper, that Capex represents an elite strategic asset. But in the cold reality of asset depreciation, you don't actually own infrastructure if a foreign government holds the master circuit breaker. Trillions of dollars in military hardware and decades of sunk capital were instantly compromised. The moment Ankara cut the commercial power grid in 2016, let's do the math. The Pentagon spent billions building a fortress, only to realize its entire operational utility could be reduced to zero by a single flip of a sovereign host nation switch. That is the definition of a Capex trap, sunk capital held hostage by local political leverage. While the politicians kept talking about alliances, the accountants at the Pentagon realized they were holding a depreciating liability. They needed to quietly write off that infrastructure monopoly, stop throwing good money after bad, and immediately divert new infrastructure capital into an asset class they could actually control. The Capex trap was just the opening baseline. Now look at the relentless operational burn rate. The real bleed isn't maintaining empty asphalt. It's the soaring hidden OPEX of protecting highly sensitive military hardware in a high-risk, hostile data environment. When Turkey integrated Russian S-400 radar architecture right next to Incirlik, they introduced a devastating data leak risk for fifth-generation stealth aircraft. Let's look at the physical reality. Every single time an F-35 spins up its engine, its unique radar cross-section and digital telemetry risk being tracked, logged, and mapped by Russian state sensors, sitting right across the sovereign fence. That data vulnerability completely ruins a multi-trillion-dollar stealth asset. The Pentagon was forced to burn millions of dollars in emergency electronic warfare shielding, physical security walls, and continuous defensive jamming. Even worse, the operational logistics lines became a nightmare. forcing massive, expensive rerouting of sensitive component supply chains away from Turkish territory altogether. That is an unsustainable operational premium. Suda completely dissolves this bleeding balance sheet. By operating inside a secure, predictable Eurozone regulatory framework, the infrastructure delivers a sterile data environment. The U.S. military stops throwing millions into emergency electronic countermeasures and buys pure, uncompromised signal security. Every supply bottleneck and every delayed transport flight rerouted from a hostile airspace adds up. It spikes the macro logistics premium, trickling directly into global supply chain inflation, container freight insurance premiums, and eventually your consumer price index. You think a closed airspace or an isolated power grid over there is just a foreign headline. Let's do the math. When heavy transport networks are forced to bypass volatile geographic choke points, the operational friction consumes millions of additional gallons of aviation and marine fuel every single day. That massive overhead doesn't disappear. It is instantly priced into the global freight index. Shipping lines and cargo carriers pass that structural burden directly down the line, compounding container maritime insurance rates by up to 300% within hours of a crisis. Ultimately, that economic friction hits the domestic market, manifesting as a direct tax on the consumer level for electronics, energy, and retail goods. Every single mechanical inefficiency inside a landlocked bottleneck like Incirlik quietly erodes your purchasing power. By contrast, look at the physical reality of the streamlined maritime infrastructure at Suda Bay. By slashing transit turnaround windows down to a razor-thin operational margin, this deep-water asset acts as a structural deflationary buffer, preserving the macro velocity of capital. Real power isn't found in political speeches. It belongs to the machinery that cuts the friction costs of global money. So how do you actually play this infrastructure shift without getting crushed by the next geopolitical breakdown? You stop betting on volatile borders, and you follow the players who own the physical assets. The apex predators of this macro layout aren't the defense contractors or the diplomats. It's the elite maritime logistics, conglomerates, and defense infrastructure, real estate trusts that quietly acquire deep water access years before a shovel hits the dirt. Let's look at the physical reality of how they manufacture wealth. Their mechanical genius lies in the exploitation of unbottlenecked deep-water port operations and completely isolated regional logistics hubs like the Alexandroupolis Bypass. They don't care who sits in the parliament. They care about who controls the concrete footprint that allows multi-ton cargo streams to completely skirt a hostile neighbor's territory. Wait a minute. Let's do the math on what this means for your personal capital. If you leave your financial positions tied down inside landlocked sovereign bottlenecks, your portfolio is carrying a massive structural liability. The smart play is a brutal macro pivot. You divert your capital away from static land-constrained risks and shift your long-term wealth into unyielding global maritime infrastructure. ETFs, automated container port networks, and heavy transport logistics funds. When the next major trade line is held hostage by a political switch, the elite won't look at the news. They will watch the concrete, collect the dividends from deep-water maritime assets, and let the rest of the market burn. Geography is just a draft on a napkin. Political treaties, sovereign borders, and diplomatic handshakes are nothing more than administrative ink. Reinforced concrete deep-water draft clearances and completely unjammable shore power grids are where real macro power sits. If your strategic asset relies on host nations' psychological stability, you do not own infrastructure. You own a multi-billion-dollar liability. The Pentagon didn't spend billions in Greece because of democratic alignment. They paid for the unyielding physics of Pier K-14. Let's look at the physical reality of global power distribution. Sovereignty is highly liquid and changes with every regime. But 1,000 feet of reinforced deep-water maritime concrete driven straight into solid bedrock is permanent. The nations that dominate the future will not be the ones with the loudest political rhetoric, but the ones that control the unbottlenecked physical conduits of macro capital. When the next inevitable security or energy crisis hits the Eastern Mediterranean, will the global operators rely on vulnerable, landlocked airfields choked by political kill switches? Or will they leverage 100,000 tons of deep-water Greek concrete? Let's do the math on risk management. Think about where you want your capital positioned when a local sovereign administration decides to pull the plug on an entire theater of operations. Wait a minute. Look at the physical reality of infrastructure permanence versus diplomatic volatility. Are you going to hedge your financial survival on an administrative paper treaty that can be torn up overnight, or on a physical maritime anchor that completely dictates battlefield tempo independent of foreign legislation? Drop your analysis below. Let me know if you are betting on the landlocked cage or the deep water platform. The blueprints have been laid out, the capital expenditures accounted for, and the structural realities exposed. When the noise of political headlines fades away, the concrete remains exactly where it was poured, dictating the flow of wealth and power across the global grid. It's a cold calculation, but the math doesn't lie. Keep your mind open, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.